I just started recording us on my own end. Let's see. I see no one else joining us. Let me ask you just quickly, Draven. What can I ask
Yeah.
you? How did you like? What I'm trying to improve the course in the future, and wondering what people. You never really know why people arrive at the course, and
hmm
what their interests are and what their goals are to get things out. Can you just talk a little bit about how you got here and what your goals are so I make sure I can tailor everything to those kind of goals?
Of course. So the reason that I'm taking this course is I know that out of all of my architectural skills that I'm trying to bring forth, my hand drawing has is not my strongest. I
Okay.
can understand the technical details. I can memorize what's in the wall section. I can, all the different parts and bits and bobs, and I can learn the different design stuff. But my hand rendering skills have always had left a lot to be desired.
Okay.
And so when I came to this new job, actually, Sal kind of brought me in, and knowing that they're wanting me to become this hybrid, IT architecture role
Mm-hmm.
for the company, they're like, "Well, we've been interested in doing iPad design. Do you think that you'd be comfortable coming and learning the iPad and learning how to design that way?" And I said, "Of course, I would. It's
Wow.
something that makes me a more robust designer."
Yeah. That's fascinating. Can I just double click on that, as they say? What was there a particular reason that they want to become iPad designers, or they want get everything started on the iPad?
They want to streamline their process a little more. They still have a lot of people who in the early phase, because we've run into an issue. It kind of rolls back to renderings.
Okay.
Rendering software's gotten so advanced now that I can put a box, just a basic box on on a plane, and then render it, and it looks like it's built. It looks like it's already there. Like
Yeah.
you just have to drive down to the site and it's there. And then what happens is we've noticed that clients kind of get married to these designs because they think that it's
Mm-hmm.
it's real now.
Right.
And
Exactly. Right.
so
So specific. Right. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And so what we're trying to do is we're actually trying to take a step away from realism, especially in the early schematic design phase.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to move away from that realism so that way we can give people something that their imagination can cling on to, and not their logic.
Yeah. That's it's so well said. And I've tried to hit that message. Maybe that got through to Sal and you as well, because I think I couldn't agree more. I think there's an ambiguity in a hand drawn line that is not there, in the computer. And ironically, I think it takes longer to do a good computer rendering because it's a real paradox that you have to commit to all this detail in order for the rendering to look good. But then at the same time, now you're committing to detail way before it might be appropriate, and so you're going to get yourself in trouble or get your firm in trouble. All right, so
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, we can pursue that later, and I really would be interested to. But let's since you're the only one here, why don't we tailor this session to exactly what you might want to do? Let's make it a private session that helps you as much as possible.
Perfect.
All right. And just as
Hey, I
I
appreciate that.
just as I said that, Katie entered the room. So we'll make the first part of it for you, and then we can make the second part of it for Katie. Hey, Katie.
Sounds good.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So Draven and I were just talking about why he came to the course, and he's talking about his firm is really sort of committing to iPad and hand drawing because they want to keep things, keep their design options open further down the road. I'm paraphrasing you, Draven, but that.
You're doing a good job.
Okay, good. The three-dimensional, being overly specific, and especially specific enough to make your 3D renderings look good, can easily get you in trouble and backfire, and the client doesn't feel maybe as engaged in the process, and so hand drawing can really pull them in. And I think there are a lot of neural mental tricks that go on with hand, not tricks, but real things with clients being able to relate to a pencil line, even though we're talking about digital pencil lines. They're still, in essence, hand-drawn lines and things. So I think it's great. And I'll ask you, Katie, later what your observations on that might be. Or why don't you actually tell us now if that rings true to you at all, and then we can start into the session.
Yeah, I actually think that's a really good approach, because a lot of clients, they don't need to see everything perfect. And I think if it looks really photorealistic, they might, like you said, they might be disappointed, or when they actually see the real thing, because they have this really high expectation of what it looks like. Whereas a hand drawing, it maybe leaves a little bit more for them to interpret, that it could change a little bit, right? It's not perfect, but it gives them enough of an idea to be able to make a decision or move forward or help them visualize something. So I think it's a really good approach.
And have you seen that in your practice so far? Examples where that may be true? And
Yeah, I mean, I don't draw actually at all. I have like people who do my drawings for me. But I would also love to be able to communicate some things more quickly, and even help myself visualize them. So like I'm just learning how to do perspective. So like in our lesson this week, I got lost, and so I had to just stop and watch. So I'm in the middle of rewatching the video now. So I have to learn perspective drawing, and so that's a little bit of a uphill for me, but I'll figure it out.
That gives me an idea, because I'm sort of kidding, but I'm also making this up as I go along. I'm trying to be responsive to you guys. And next week's session was going to be on drawing to scale, but I think that can be covered pretty quickly. And maybe what we'll do is segue into drawing in perspective, sketching in perspective, and take a simpler approach to it, and come up from the ground. Whereas last week we kind of quickly jumped into it. So. Now I just, because Draven was brave enough to be the first one here today, I just offered to kind of spoil him, and I said, well, why don't we devote the lesson to whatever you want to learn today, and what we can do now is we can spoil both of you, and why don't we split the time that's left, and let's start with Draven and something specific he might want to learn, and then we can do the same for you, Katie.
Sounds good.
So my major question was to see what we had missed on Wednesday, because I don't feel like we got to everything that you wanted to. Unfortunately, it seems like we were having a lot of technical difficulties.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear more about because I've gotten to, I don't know if you can see this, but I got to about here. I've got the trees. I guess you can't really see that.
You know what? It didn't focus. Start with it next to your nose, and then bring it in slowly. Okay, and go a little towards your left.
Oh, it doesn't help that I've got this blur filter.
Okay, that's probably it. Yeah, I don't want to make you lose your beautiful blur filter though, so don't.
Yeah, I don't want to lose my beautiful blur filter either.
Right.
It's hiding all the mess that's happening.
I was going to say we don't want your mother. We don't want your mother.
It's too small.
We don't want your mother to see your room, but actually we don't mind if you don't, if you're up for it. So,
I just have to figure. There we go. Hi.
Oh, that's fine.
What?
Okay, now that's just Ooh, there you go. Now that's good. So go real slow and raise it about an inch or so, and okay, that's really nice. So you got as far as the plants, and what else might be left is what you're saying, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I think that we could probably start with what Katie's needing, so that way she could also kind of follow along with what we're doing too, hopefully.
Well, that's a very kind offer. I mean, Katie, why don't you tell us what you might be, not that you came to class necessarily with a question, but tell us what you might be interested in. Let's see if we can blend the two.
Yeah, so I got as far last night rewatching, like I'm a little over halfway through the video, so I got to the place where we just have the bones of the pool in. So, but last time during the live video, I was able to follow along as you were like doing trees and stuff, because that didn't. I was just practicing like using the brushes and stuff. So I still have a lot of work to do on filling in that object to get to the point where Draven is. So
Okay.
I think I can just keep watching the video and figure that out.
Okay.
My main questions were going to be like, do you have any tricks or tips on how to learn perspective more quickly? So is there great books or resources that I could do that would help me?
Okay. Well, let's do Draven. You're also going to be doing a lot of perspective sketching, right?
Yes.
Hopefully in your future, right?
Hopefully.
And that's what they're coming to you for. So I actually have a I actually have a good example because I've been thinking of making a course specifically in perspective. And so let's see, I'm going to switch to the overhead camera here, and I'm going to show you. All right, so you guys yell out, because what happens is I switch back and forth between screens, and now my screen is showing only my overhead shot of my iPad, and that way I'm not distracted by people's reactions, or even worse, I'm not looking for people's reactions. So what I'll do is I'll go back in and I'll show you. This could be very apropos, and I'll make sure we bring it back to that rendering that we're doing. Okay, and I'm trying to find the most relevant. Let's see. We'll see if these are helpful. They may or may not be. I'm going to try and find which one I started with. Okay, I'll turn on the video and just in real time try and remember. Okay, so I think this will be useful, and I'll send you both this file, and you can be the first experimenters in this course. But I was trying to make notes about how I might make this course, and I was trying to document in real time how I go about making perspective when I do. And so if that sounds appealing to you guys, I'm going to just go through the video replay slowly, the same way we did the other night, and let's see what happens here. So I always start my perspective. This is really to do with perspective sketching first. And I always start my perspective sketching with some kind of a placeholder for a person. And that could be one of those stencils that we looked at, or you could just fake it, and at this point I can pretty much make a blob person. So the trick though is that you're going to go and create 5 feet you're going to call eye level 5 feet, and just make a note of it. And this is, again, remember, this is perspective sketching with no grid or anything, but just how you imagine a perspective if you have to do one quickly on the back of an envelope during a client meeting or something. And let me try and focus in a little bit more, make it that's a little better. Okay, so first thing I do is I determine what's 5 feet, and then I can use copy and paste in this machine in Procreate to sort of grab that 5 feet and move it over, because my goal now is to make a square. And really this could be called drawing perspective by the proportional method. And so simply, as funny as this sounds, what I've really done, I used to estimate this if it was in pencil and paper, but I just copied this again and then turned it on its side, and that gave me a quick square. And so then I'll use red again on a different layer to kind of create this background grid almost. And there I am being silly again. So we've got a 5-foot square, and that's going to form the basis for this perspective. And now let's make 2. So to do that, there's this trick where you can run a diagonal line through half of the square, and where it intersects on this side, it'll also be a square. So this is just a quick way for making 2 squares. And shout out at any moment if you guys have a question, okay? So there's my 2 squares. And again, I'll send you this file so you can hit the replay. That's a double square. I'm reading this for the first time in about 4 months too, so that's funny. That's a double square made without a ruler and just proportions. And let's see here. I'll keep moving a little bit. So now another great thing about iPad drawing, I can just shift that up or move it around to make sure I can make room for next thing I want to do. So I say, now let's break it down to feet. And here is really just this time you are eyeballing. You're just trying to divide that line into 5 equal segments. And it's always, close enough, as I say. I'm fond of saying that when it comes to this. So now I'm taking this entire thing and copying it and pushing it up here. So this is just an example of how you can pretty much create the proportions for any room based on this simple proportional sketching idea. So we've got a 10-foot square without a ruler. And one thing that may or may not come up later is that what we're really doing, the key to this, is that we're drawing a section slice through the room. And later on we'll talk about how that section can be 2-point, but for now we're going to go with this 1-point perspective, okay? So once you do that, the next step is to pick a vanishing point on that horizon, and all of your parallel lines are going to converge to that point. So what's great about this now is you can start to bring in your experience as a designer and fill this out. So for instance, you see here the kitchen counters at 3 feet high. So I'm just starting to block in a very basic kitchen counter, and it's really ugly drawing, always very rough, but I'm not worried about the quality of the drawing now. I'm just worried about proportions. And obviously I've come out 2 feet, or I've estimated what has been 2 feet to come out, and it's probably a little bit off, but that's okay. And there's my overhead cabinets coming in now. And now I believe that's going to be the island. So just by following these rules, I know the island's going to start back a little bit from the exterior face of this. I put it in there and then estimate how deep it goes. And again, it's at 3 feet. So it's going to track across to this cabinet. And let's see what else we do. Now what I've done is I've taken this whole thing, which is in red, and I used that color adjustment and desaturated that red layer. So now it looks like I've got an original dark pencil drawing. And then we did the other day, we showed how to put on some quick washes of things. So on this layer, I've switched to the flat.
Hey, James.
Yeah.
Just a quick question on why didn't you start with that color instead of starting with red?
The red is really just to stand out with each step. I like to initially do it in red just as a teaching method. And also there's sometimes where you'll have an underlay under this, and red is just a way. It's a trick another renderer taught me once, where you can it helps you identify things a little, or be aware of what's on what layer a little more, if that's important at any point.
Yeah, got it.
Okay.
And you can change it.
Yeah, and then because you can change it, that much makes it so useful. So now I'm just quickly throwing in tone, and this I love the fact that this can really start to transform a drawing. What looks really basic, with just a little silly tone, starts to take on more character. And this is, a very cramped space, so it's really just showing you the principles involved. And another cool thing is that once you create tone, you can duplicate those layers as we did the other day, and just start automatically darkening this. You don't have to, in this way, you don't have to keep estimating how dark you want to be and drawing over things. You can just get the really quick feedback by duplicating layers. So it starts to take a little better shape now. And I think we're going to be close to this. Let's see. And suddenly, you're sketching in perspective. And I believe I might have finished out with that. Okay, so let's look at the layers of that just real quickly. And of course there are none, so that's not going to help us, because I really was sketching, in real time with this. Now let's look at another one. Any questions about that, guys?
Okay. I just thought what was cool about that is it went back to your original live lesson this week, where you were estimating the door height to figure out the heights of the deck right outside the door, and then you figured out the height of the pool area. So that's kind of a trick that you just showed.
Very, very good. Well said. Thank you. So let's look at, and I'm going to go through these one at a time. I really hadn't prepared this, but let's see if this is going to be useful too. So here is, let's see, this, and I think this will be fun for you guys. I'll send these to you guys. Always start with either a plan or some knowledge of the room size you want to sketch. Have the width, height, and the length readily accessible. So here we go. I'll test my own theory. I'm drawing the scale figure perfect, or scale figure first. Doesn't have to be perfect. Add the horizon. Then estimate the size of the room that you already know the size, but now you have to transfer that to your proportional estimation. And you use squares. It's really kind of the rule of squares for that. And then always I try to keep the simplest subdivisions possible. So obviously dividing it in half gives you 2.5 feet. And now you have a 7.5 foot tall room. And of course you can add a little bit to that. And then let's see, or if you're feeling brave, as you get better at this, eyeball 5 equal divisions on the side and then extrapolate up to 8 feet. So that's what that's all about, okay? And let's go and see what else might be useful. The importance of the section cut. Okay, so always start with a plan, we know that. And eye level 5 feet, estimate a square that is 8 feet high. I think we're going to actually draw a room after we go through these and see if any of these are helpful. I just filled in the square using a new layer in Procreate. All right, that's not going to be that helpful. And we'll go back and let's try this one here. So always start with either a plan or some knowledge of the room. I guess I kept repeating that note because I found that useful. And let's look at this. This has got more layers. So let's look at the replay of this, and we'll talk it through, and then we'll actually draw a space. And let's see, time-lapse replay. So you guys call me out if you see anything that isn't what I had said it was. This is a gallery space for a house that we're designing right now with a big empty courtyard in the middle of the house. And there the gallery is literally 5 feet wide. And then I've done that trick where I've made it 8 feet. And now this time I don't want to build that perspective back in that tiny little box. I'm drawing it out and just sort of feeling it out as I go. So these lines are all freehand lines just sketched back to that vanishing point. And then they have a dining room back there. And there goes, and there's again that proportional rule where that dining room table is at 30 inches or half of the horizon. One thing we didn't mention is that once you establish the horizon, that will be the horizon for any part of the floor back here. If there's something way back here, then 30 inches from that point will be halfway up to that 5 feet. So that 5 feet will always stay and always be your reference point. And here comes some quick ideas. This is the free floating fireplace between the dining room and the great room behind it. And the other trick in making these hand-drawn perspectives is estimating the depth, and we'll cover that in a moment. But that has to do with estimating what a square would look like going back into the picture plane, and that is a very subjective art. And here you go. Here's some texture for that walkway around this. And there's a kind of a moon gate over on this side. And let's see, did I have the right form? Yep, there we go. And then you'll see me at some point. I think I'm going to put some tone on this because I love to do that. And again, this very imperfect, this can serve as an underlay for a more rigorous drawing assist version of this later. Now this is that move, we did this in that house in the pool sketch, but it may not have been obvious what I was doing. So relevant to that idea of adding tone very quickly, here I'm just adding this huge chunk of tone because the real point of this drawing is to emphasize this exterior courtyard that lets all this light into this room. So sometimes you can make really simple, bold gestures that quickly pull the drawing together. And what I'm doing is I'm subtracting these areas with the selection tool, and I'm also going to be subtracting this light here, so I show the sunlight coming in, and that's a shadow from one of the mullions, which hasn't been drawn in, but you can make little twists like that, and no one will know the better. And let's see, I think it's pretty
James,
much...
when you did that part, is that 2-point perspective then?
This one is still 1 point. Yeah, because
Okay.
you can see these are vanishing directly horizontal off to the side. And I'll look for a 2-point next time. So then this, on top of that, I'm just selectively, I guess what I've done is here is I've added a color over this walkway, but once again in that multiply blend mode. So anything below it also comes through still. And it's just a very quick way. You can see this is before I've added the multiply blending, and then suddenly click and it goes on. And here again is one of those gradients that we did. Although this I think I might have done just by slowly erasing out from the black with that soft brush. And that's pretty much that one. And let's see if we have a 2-point perspective exercise in here. And I believe I do. Let's look at this. Nope, that's still 1 point. Let's go back here. And 1 point there, 1 point there. This looks like it might be 2 point. And yeah, this is a little vignette of that living room, that great room back there. And let's see if I've stayed consistent here. Okay, yeah, so we'll do 2 point live here in a second because it's a little more complicated, right? But why don't we do this? Why don't we, let's do one of each. Let's do an exterior, or let's do something, Draven, you might want to do, and then let's do one that Katie, that you might want to do. And Draven, why don't you suggest a exterior, like a simple, it could be a garden shed in the backyard. It could be something like this here. Name a kind of a sketch that you might want to make in time for a meeting, and I'll switch back and we can all talk about this. Oops. So what? Oh, and we've got Pascal. Hi, Pascal. I'm just coming back. Pascal, we can't hear you yet. You have to turn on your microphone.
So I struggled to connect, and it took stress. That's why I'm late.
Well,
I was in advance. In advance.
No problem. You're here, and yeah, it's normal daytime for you, so you have no excuse. So
that's why. But I struggled to find the right connection.
No,
now I have it.
I'm kidding. You guys, and you all know this, but these are highly optional, and it's just a pleasure to have you guys here. So. No problem. Pascal, I haven't had my head up until now, and what we're doing is going through some simple rules of perspective sketching that aren't directly, they are related to our lesson, but not directly. So I've asked Draven to suggest a subject for a 2-point perspective, and then I've asked Katie to do one as well. And I thought we could just go through the principles, and you guys could see how I like to teach sketching. So, Draven, you are on, sir.
The first thing that came to mind was this reading tree that we had for a project that I really wanted to be able to sketch out. It's basically, they have this old growth tree that they were wanting to build some sort of like outdoor seating space for people to come sit down and read to, because it's a community center, so they could read to like the local children and things like that.
Okay. And tell us a little bit more about the story. Is it a square space in plan? Is it What
It's
would
a
it?
circular space and plan, but we can make it square for simplicity's
Oh
sake.
yeah, I was going to say, go ahead and make it hard for me. Why don't you? But,
Yeah, I saw you
yeah.
put in that moon door earlier, and I was like, how
Yeah.
does he get those circles to look
Well,
so
we
good in
can.
perspective? Mine always look like eggs.
I'll show you a really simple trick for that. But let's start with square because it'll have the same proportions. So about how big is it across? Do you think?
About 25 feet across.
Okay, and how
We'll say
tall?
it's 25 feet in any direction.
Okay, and it's interior room or is it a courtyard of some kind?
Courtyard,
Okay.
exterior.
And how tall would you say the eaves are, the gutter where the roof intersects this space?
Probably right at 7 feet, I think, right where the eaves of the tree are.
7 feet. Okay. So it's kind of a low Frank Lloyd Wright-ish. You walk out into this courtyard from a low space inside, or from a low overhang.
Yes.
Okay. And the tree sort of an abstract tree? Will like a local artist, or will you guys design this tree, or will it be a real tree?
A real tree. That's what they were hoping to do, to keep that old growth tree and keep it a part of the community.
Okay, that old growth tree is in there already, right?
Yes.
Okay. And what's the?
It's in their front like courtyard space, and they were wanting to incorporate it more than just like a shading space off to the side.
Okay.
And so the client was like, "Can we turn this into a reading space where we can bring people to and then kind of sit down, enjoy the shade of the tree, and
Nice.
kind of share stories?"
Okay. And will the tree arch all the way to the edges of this opening? Will it?
It reaches about halfway across.
Okay. And how chunky would you say that the tree is at its trunk? What's the diameter, say, of the tree?
I would say the diameter is probably maybe 5 feet.
Oh,
5 feet.
so it's
It's a pretty
huge.
it's a pretty big tree.
Is it like a live oak or something, being in Memphis, or?
I don't know what kind of tree it is, but it is a very like
Okay.
they were very specific. Like, you can't, like, do not harm this tree.
Okay.
When y'all are doing construction, like this is like it's a
Okay.
community tree.
Okay. And is it something like? Does it look like it might be from King Arthur? Is it kind of gnarly and ancient that way, and or?
Yeah, I mean it's a little
Okay.
it's a little well taken care of. They keep it kind of trimmed up, at least looking as well as it could. But
Okay.
it's a little gnarly.
Okay. Well, this is going to be really.
Like, probably, what, 100 years old at least?
300 years old, probably something like this.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Yeah. Okay, so this is going to be really fun because you guys have something in mind, and I'm like, no, wait a second, I got something in mind too. All right, last couple of questions. Is the perimeter that surrounds the tree, is it all like walkout glass doors, or partly solid, or what's the perimeter?
it's all open air,
Oh, open air.
so it's meant to be an like an outdoor space.
Oh, I
Completely
see.
Outdoor.
I see. Totally outdoors before you arrive at the building, right?
Yes.
Okay. And when you arrive at the building,
So it's maybe 100 feet from the building, at like 100 feet, probably 50 feet from the building.
oh, okay. So this thing, it's a detached structure of some kind?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, their desire would be to have it, I mean, kind of attached to their walkway space that they've got set up right now.
Okay. And then last question, what is the accommodation for seating? Is there a circular bench around the base of the tree, or throw pillows like it's in Morocco, or what's the strategy for how people sit and learn and read?
The initial strategy was a seat around the tree for the reader,
Mm-hmm.
and then seats along the perimeter for people to sit along.
Okay. All right. I think we've got enough information now. So I'm gonna flip back over to my screen where I'm just seeing myself draw, and so I'm making sure I'm doing the right thing. And I'll switch to this, and here we go. This is going to be really fun. So obviously I'm going to start in the main gallery, and usually at this point, and you can't see this, but step one is always get a cup of coffee or tea and procrastinate. Okay, so if you can relate to that, you know what I'm talking about. Let's do the thing where we This won't have any scale. It's all going to be proportional. So I'm just going to go with a full-size iPad screen. Okay, so I'll pick a new canvas and I'll go screen size. And I will go to I'll use black because, you guys can follow along just fine. Now, a lot of times I will, instead of going right to a pencil, because the thing about a pencil is that a pencil is, if I draw a person in pencil, whether I like it or not, I'm starting to actually give that person details. A lot like that analogy we talked about where computers kind of make people too tight, right? And so even though I'm just trying to draw in blobs, I'm still making some decisions about that person. And I give this as context because what I'm going to do, and I'm holding 2 fingers down to make this go all the way back to 0, is a lot of times for these kind of renderings, and when I go to a client, I'll use the flat marker first. And I'll make it so that it kind of, this is really a strategy for sort of creating accidents, okay? And you'll see why in a moment, because I'm going to start with a person, and I'm just going to kind of put them in the middle of nowhere. And, you can see me still making choices, but that's just because I'm trying to make their proportions pretty good. And now I've got my 5 feet. So instead of sketching at 5 feet by hand, I'll actually do that trick where we pull the line across and then hold it. And so that's going to be my reference point. That's going to be my 5-foot perspective. And a lot of times I'll even put a little shadow under the person to make it very real. And you can see this is really strange, but this thing, because of the ambiguity of the sketch, I can even add a few more details, and suddenly, it's not that bad as a person. But I don't want to get there yet. I just want to show you that there are these ways that you can see things in these lines. So the next thing I'm going to do is try and figure out where 25 feet is. And I'll just sort of start making these tick marks. And I'm going to do it all on one sheet. I'm not even going to worry about, adding layers and stuff. But here I'm just guessing where 5 feet is, and guessing again where 5 feet is, and guessing again where 5 feet is. And while I'm drawing those lines, I'm looking. This is that proportional square system we were talking about, where you have nothing else. I'm not going to bring out a scale ruler. I'm just going to keep proportions. And I'll come back over to this side. Now, I haven't picked where this person is going to be yet, because really step 1, I guess step 1 was the person, which established the scale. Step 2 is the room, the section cut through the room, as we discussed. And being a circle, it doesn't really have 2 vanishing points. It has a single vanishing point, but we're actually going to make this a two vanishing point sketch at first, and we're going to make it square, and then at the very end we'll fill in the circle. So here I am. I'm halfway through that first cup of coffee, and let's say that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's all it is. Sometimes that'll surprise you that 25 feet is only that far. And I'll just quickly grab the eraser up here and make sure that's also not in some funny brush. But I'll also put that in the flat marker brush, and I'll make that bigger because I want to work fast. So here are the 5 squares I want to keep. That gives me my proportion across, and I'll just quickly erase this one and this one. Okay, now the question is, and a lot of subjective things are going to start happening, but you know that, well, I guess we could put the tree in the middle, and you had mentioned 7 feet high, so I'm going to go here. I'll blow this up a little bit. I'm going to say this is 5, so this is 2.5. And Pascal, thank you for dealing with our antiquated feet and inches.
I just looked how much it's a feet on Google.
Okay.
30 centimeters. So
very good. Yeah, I mean, we always think of it, when we have to convert, we always think that a meter is 3 inches longer than a yard. So that helps too.
Okay.
So here's 7.5, and again, I'm just going to throw some lines in because the critical thing is not how I set up the view yet, but roughly the proportions of this space, roughly, okay? And you can see that a lot of information is starting to build up. Now here's the walkway around the structure, and Draven, how wide would the covered part of this be, the shade part? Do you remember?
That's coming out of the tree, or are you talking about
Well, let's say that
constructed?
if the tree is here, right, then it's, you said it fills up this space, right, this circular space.
Yeah.
And is that space
Yes.
defined? So that here's the edge of that, the interior edge, and then how far does it go this way if it does, if I'm understanding this correctly?
It does. It doesn't.
It doesn't.
It doesn't have like a roof structure going around it.
Okay. Well, then I'll tell you what. Let's pretend it does maybe later if it helps us, but otherwise we'll keep going with this way. Okay. And here again, you can see me moving this around at times, and just don't forget that 2-finger pinch to bring it back. And so let's see. We now know we've got we said we were going to make this more of a rectangular 2-point space. And Katie, to your question, if you're going to be a 1 point, usually that vanishing point is right in the middle, but we're going to move the vanishing point over just to give this a little bit of more of a dynamic feeling. And actually it's kind of late for that, but let's stick with the 1 point for now, okay? So I'm going to make this my 1 point, and I'm going to come here and just sort of lightly pull this out and then hold at the end. And so basically I'm creating this lightweight underlay for the further development of this drawing, okay? And I'll stop there. I don't know why I'm interested in adding something to that, because I think I like the idea of having some enclosure. So I might make this a little darker. And with your permission, Draven, I'm going to imagine this to be a somewhat covered courtyard before you enter the building, with this tree right in the middle. Now I'm too far away. As I look at this overall thing, the tree's back here, and I want it to be more immediate in our experience, more like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, and since this is all on one layer, and this again is the beauty of all this, that you can just keep making these kinds of changes, I'm going to select that whole layer. I'm going to move it in carefully with my fingers like this, and now I'm going to, because I'm in uniform selection, I'm going to bring it out until it starts feeling correct to me, like the emphasis of the drawing. I can imagine that tree is going to be relatively close to the foreground, because I really want to see the action under that tree. And then I'll build the perspective this way a little bit, and then back into the drawing a little bit, okay? So let's see how that works out. I'll commit to this, and I'm going to go back into this flat marker again and just add a few more fuzzy details that only I will see, but that are going to help me figure out basically how to compose the rest of this sketch. So there's always two things going on. There's always the sketch, the techniques that are involved in perspective, but also the composition of the sketch. And really the only way to develop that skill is to just look at a whole bunch of art and get lots of books and look at a lot of photographs and figure out what very experienced people are doing to create their compositions, or to find compositions that you like. And a lot of times for interior renderings and stuff, I'll just sort of look through pages of furniture manufacturers, like I forget what it's called, Restoration Hardware is a great one, or West Elm. And so I'm already starting to kind of clean things up to get rid of distractions. And this is, one might say that I'm actually procrastinating, which would be closer to the truth. But it's always nice to have done the work already and then just take away from it. So I'm just going to check my instincts here and see if this is starting to add up to something that will tell the story. And I guess it's okay. So at this point, to be honest, what I would probably do is go online and find a fantastic example of a tree that was, as close as possible. Or I guess, Draven, if you could actually go down and take a picture of the tree, you might even do it that way. So, but I'll keep drawing by hand so you guys can see how I interpret trees and things. And at this point, just to be safe, I'm going to add a layer, and then I'm going to keep this kind of fuzzy thing going. I'm going to try and get that feeling of maybe there are branches that come down a little bit lower and start to spread. And again, this is why it helps so much to have an actual example from nature. And trees are a little tricky to draw because they're happening in 3 dimensions above you, and you all are familiar with that, I'm sure. So it really helps to have a precedent that you're looking at. But I'm going to try and create this sense that it's coming out over this space. So I'll be having limbs that, I'm going to shorten this a little bit, I'll be having limbs that come out at least this far. And a lot of times with trees, I like to start at the boundary of the tree with a thinner pen stroke and kind of work my way back in, always doing that thing where the same way a tree grows, bringing branches back into larger branches and into larger branches. And again, with that confidence that nobody will ever see this necessarily, you can be much more relaxed about this and not criticize yourself. We're all our own worst enemies, of course, and really start to get something going here. Okay, so I don't want to get too many branches down here because I want to make sure that people still feel like they can approach this tree and sit under it, and it may even require some pruning when Draven and his company install this. But let's stop here for a second. And now I'm going to switch my emphasis to the surrounding area, the part where people can sit. And it's going to be circular. So this might be a good time for let's keep going square for the moment. I'm guessing if this is the middle of the courtyard, and I'll sketch in a light line there, then, and if it's a square courtyard, there are some tricks with geometry you can do. Like, what I'm basically saying is that by my eye and without any other justification, I'm sort of saying, well, this feels like a square to me. And so I can keep testing that hypothesis and go from this corner through the middle of the square down to the lower corner, which of course is way off the page. But that means that the bottom of this square would be way down here. And that looks okay to me for now, so I'll just keep going. And now what I might do is, well, let's get that circular bench in. And again, I'm just sort of starting in a hazy way and letting it's almost like you're listening to your pencil. Your subconscious is starting this circle, and you're in real time you're reacting to the sense of a circle that you've drawn. So I'd still like to do it freehand and just estimate, but there is this trick I promised you. And let's make a new layer for that. And this time I will switch to red. And I can't remember, I think we covered it in the first week's lesson, but if I switch to a fat pencil here, okay, you can draw an absolutely terrible circle and then hold your finger down And that circle, or rather hold the tip of your pencil down at the end, and that will snap into a more regular shape. So I'll start up here. We won't be using it up here, but I'll do it up here just for fun. So here's my terrible circle, and just by virtue of holding down the pencil tip at the end, it snaps into that perfect ellipse, okay? So where that could come in handy, and remember I'm on a different layer just to demonstrate this, is I could get some approximation of this circle, and I may not be very confident that it works, but if I come back over here, and even if I'm shaking all over the place and blocky, as long as I get back here and stop my pencil, then I get this wonderful ellipse that I can play with, and I can release that at some point, and again go back to just my experience and my sensibility and say, does that look right? Yeah, I guess so. But let's say it didn't look right and it was too chunky. What you could do is come in to the move and transform tool, and remember it's on its own layer for this very reason. I can come to the move and transform tool, and looky here, I've got this way to either enlarge it and move it around, or I'll go back to what it was originally, or I can do this freeform trick and squeeze it in and make it look a little more like that. So it's another way of sort of teaching yourself drawing by taking advantage of these tools. And remember, this particular one, the freeform, allowed you to stretch only one dimension at a time, whether it's that one or this one. And the uniform allows you to enlarge the entire thing. So once you had the proportions right, or you felt like it created the illusion right, you can do that. Now we're going to get kind of specific here because this is just an interesting thing. I didn't think of this ahead of time, but we're going to be making a bench, right? So here again is this wonderful way that Procreate can help teach you to draw. I'm going to duplicate this ellipse, and I want you all to have in your mind what you think I'm going to do, and then let's see. I won't test you, but let's see if you're correct. Now I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to move the duplicate up, and I'm going to estimate. Remember, my person is standing here. This is my 5-foot line, my 5-foot horizon. So I guess I'm going to turn this off for a second, and I'll go back to that original marking, that original ellipse, and just to quickly review this idea that here's your 5-foot horizon, and here is the ground, the place on the ground where we want to estimate a proportion. So if I quickly estimate 5 equal divisions of what I know to be 5 feet, then I can say, the bench is going to be, let's make the bench at 12 inches. So I can come up from this point and say, well, now I have the height of my bench, okay? And this is happening pretty fast in real time when you get to a certain level of proficiency, but we are walking through it slowly, one at a time. So now I'll go back to that layer, and that looks like, there it is. That was a pretty good estimate, but that's not what we want, because this ellipse is going to be more foreshortened, more flattened than the lower one. So I'm going to switch to the uniform. Oops, let's see, I've got too many things in that layer. I'm going to go back to this layer. This is the layer of the one that we raised up. And now I'll go back to that move and transform. And because I know the size is correct, but not the degree of flatness, I'll just use the freeform tool, because I want to flatten it like this until that feels right to me, okay? So that's pretty close. And lo and behold, you've got yourself, all just by using proportions, you've got yourself the kind of skeleton of this bench where people are going to be sitting around this tree. So again, because we're going to kind of throw away this layer, this is all our preparation layer, I'll just go into that same layer and I'll add some details to that, and maybe, just kind of sketch, add a little tone to it, figure out how much. That's probably going to be the inner dimension of the tree, because we have to stay away from these roots as much as possible. So really what we'll be doing is we'll be adding another layer. I'll do that freehand, but we're actually going to be out here more with the final bench, say. So it's going to fatten itself further. And I could have gone back in and done all that again with ellipses, but let's just do it more quickly like this, and begin to shape the space that way. And I'll go back and forth and sometimes use the eraser and make some quick corrections, okay? So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, well, that's going to work. What's left to be done? And I'll sometimes just add another layer for the heck of it, to sort of take care of details. And this will start to bring the story more alive. So let's say that down here we're going to have somebody. Oh, I want to go back to that flat marker brush. So let's say down here we want to have somebody reading. So we begin to tell the story and capture the imagination of our client. And I think before I do that, I'll even add one of those layers of tracing paper that we talked about. That'll tone all of this down so I can concentrate on quick entourage. And I will add a layer there. I'll go back to white and do that trick where we pull the white over and release it. And then we adjust the opacity of that layer this way. And so you can see what I mean by now I feel like I'm in control of this a little bit more, and I can see more clearly what I'm doing. And you can also, at this point, let's have more fun. Let's add those people that we had in those. This will really help Draven and anyone that doesn't necessarily want to draw people, because people can kind of take away from the realism and become very idiosyncratic and even distracting. So let's add a layer, and I'll go in. I need to be in black, and we'll go in and find our entourage stencils that you guys all have, and we'll go into our grayscale people, and I'll go to this densely packed one, because I'm sure, by going, this is the sort of spread out version, these first two. You can see where it says 49 people, 51 people, but I'm going to go to the 100 people, so I'm sure I get the ones I want. I select that, and then I come up here. Now, this is interesting. Remember, these stencils are designed for the 300 DPI 11 by 17. So if I stamp this now, these are going to go off of the page. So I'm sort of dragging around just to see the people I want, and I want a couple of seated figures. So I like what I see here, and even here if it's a children's story space. So I'm now going to tap this firmly right now, and I'm going to go in with my freehand tool, and I feel bad because nobody's stopping me, so I guess everyone's getting this slowly. And you'll have the recording too if you want to watch it again, but here we go. So I'll do my copy and paste, and maybe I'll copy a couple at the same time, and even this one. And let's just go for broke while we're at it. Let's say that this couple here, well, there's a little conversation before a PTA meeting, and we'll include them. And now I'll come down to that copy and paste command, and that takes it, whatever I've cut, and puts it on its own layer, and you can see that there. And now I'll turn off this layer, which is the sort of master layer if I want to come back and find anything. And now I can individually drag these people and just sort of create this more robust underlay or robust draft of this scene. So I'll go to the selection tool, and I'm still in freehand, and I'll select this group, and now I'll switch to the move tool and bring them down, and psychologically I'm looking at this horizon line, and I'm locating their heads on that horizon line. So as long as their heads are on that line, their feet will accurately locate themselves in this sketch. So let's bring them back here and stop that there. And remember, we're excuse me, normally what I would do is put each of these on their own layer. I better switch out of that before it gets me in trouble. Normally I'd put each one on its own layer, but it's probably a little faster to do it this way right now. So let's select this fella next, and we'll go into the freehand selection, and we'll bring him down, and we're going to pop him on this bench, but he looks like a toy person right now. That's because we have to enlarge him, and oops, I've got freeform involved. I want to go back to uniform, and I'm going to enlarge him, and this gets to be really fun because you can see where his seat of his pants is and where his toes are, and so that's going to be pretty good. And let's go up, and they're all a little bit too dark, so we'll lighten that later, but let's go up and grab the woman. This is the meet cute scenario in Draven's courtyard. She's over here. She doesn't notice him yet. Okay. And yeah, I'm just trying to get your all's attention. So all right, now we'll bring our I think that's a dad and a kid, but it may not be, and we'll put them back here, and let's say they just found something interesting in the courtyard. And this is a little trickier because a lot of times you'll want to like literally get a tape measure out and sit on the floor and measure where the top of your head is when you're seated in a certain way. But let's say they're on a kind of a low ornamental bench that's off to the side, and we'll go with that for the second. And while I'm here, I'm just let's drop in on the entourage again, and let's see if we have a tree that might work as the big ornamental tree in the middle here, the specimen. Now if I do that, I can come over here and go through this whole exercise again, and I guess I will. So I'll come back here, I'll do my pinch, and I'll make sure I'm on a different layer. And I don't know for a fact that I'm going to do this yet, but let's look at these and see if something might begin to approximate that big tree that we know is going to be in there. And
the left one.
The next thing? Yeah, do you mean this one, Pascal?
Oh, the left on the upper.
Oh,
the left upper corner.
You saw a good one already?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so, because when he told me it could be an oak,
okay.
It's more or less that.
Okay.
When you took your page and you saw one on the left, on the upper
okay.
left corner.
Okay. Up here? This one?
This one, yeah.
Okay.
One.
Well, here's I'm going to be a little more particular. I'm looking for one that's just branches at first, and I don't know that I'll find it, but let's see.
Sorry.
No, please. I love the interaction. Yeah, so I think I really would, in this case, I think the tree ball, or rather the branches, are going to be so important for Draven's concept that I'm at least looking for something that is has low branches that can create this sense of space inside.
This one.
And this one isn't too bad, but I don't know if I can scale that up so big. But I'll tell you what, it's going to at least be as good as anything that I could draw. Oh, maybe this one. Okay. All right, I'm going to ask for all of your kind permission, and I'm going to tap right now, and then I'm going to select just that tree and pull this up.
It's fine.
Yeah, that doesn't really work, but so what? Or maybe, you know
No,
what?
it's okay.
How about
No problem.
maybe this one? I don't know if it'll scale
Yeah,
up,
perhaps.
but yeah,
Oh,
let's
it's okay.
the first
not
one. You like the first one?
It's okay.
Okay.
It's a symbolic. It's okay what you do, what you wanted to choose.
Okay. All right. So
It doesn't matter if it's another species. It's just for the example. So
yes,
it's okay.
that is very true. Okay, so here's a little trick for you. I selected something before, and now that selection went away. But I don't have to select it again. I can hold down on the selection button and watch what happens. With any luck, nothing. Okay, I do have to select it again. That's supposed to remember the selection, but it did not. So here we go. So we'll select it again. We'll do our copy and paste, and we'll get rid of, or rather we'll just make transparent that part, turn that layer off. I'll go back and change my brush so I don't get in trouble. And now I'm in this layer, so I'm going to go ahead and enlarge it, and I'm going to make it a lot larger. So we're going to pretend that it's a bigger tree than it actually is, and this will be, yeah. So that's kind of tricky, right? So we'll do that and call it a day. And then before I do that, I want to shrink down. Now remember, I'm going to lose all that, so that's okay. And I'll click out of that, and there's our tree. And now I'll try and quickly erase this so it sits in there better, and it'll be obscured by that part. And I think I'll even make it more transparent, so we have more of a suggestive rendering. So that way the client won't get too obsessed with, we have the wrong tree. And I'm going to lighten these people because the contrast is very bold at the moment. So to do that, I'll go back to that adjustment layer, and I will lighten them this way. And I'm lightening them. I could also make them transparent, but by lightening them, I keep all their pixels solid in case I want to color them later. So that's the whole trick there, okay? And so this is really now the underlay. And at this point, what I would normally do is do a layer on top of this and create a kind of line drawing that worked with all this. So I'll add a layer on top of this. And it's not strictly necessary, but let's talk about the philosophy of this a little bit first. Like we need to tighten up because we have relatively precise looking people and trees. I feel the need to tighten up the architectural part, or the landscape, the hard edges of the landscape part. So maybe it's a little bit quicker to show you that, where I'm going to take that layer of trace now and move it up over the last intervention that we made, and I'll release it there. I might even make it a little bit more opaque. I still want you all to see it. And then what I would do is, remember we didn't even activate drawing assist yet, perspective drawing assist. So now I'll go back to the wrench menu, and because we have our diagram and we've obeyed the laws of perspective, we can now use that shortcut inside the actions menu and inside the canvas, and we can go to the drawing guide. And remember, in your minds again, remember what you think is going to happen when I tap this button. I'm sure you'll have it right. Up comes the 2D drawing assist by default. So I have to go to the edit drawing guide, and I have to switch from 2D to perspective. And that takes away all the grid because it's waiting for me now to place the vanishing point, okay? And if I place, this gets back to an interesting thing where we can almost make it like a 2-point. If we want to make this, if we're happy with this drawing just as is, we can just put that vanishing point right in the middle, And I'll make that as dark as I can so you guys can see that. And that means all the lines are going to converge just the way we've shown it there. But if I put that line off to the side and I'm holding down this dot until it frees up, if I put that line off to the side, you can see it creates a very different kind of a aesthetic. So that would be a little more dynamic because we'd be a little bit more on this pathway leading to the building, and the courtyard would be a little more open off to this side. And let's just do that for the sake of making this as fresh as possible. So I'm going to say that's acceptable, and I'm going to go back into my layer, and I'm going to activate Drawing Assist. And let's see, that's working, but I don't want that grid to be there because I find that very distracting. So I will go into the wrench menu and turn off the guide. Now that doesn't mean the function of Drawing Assist has gone away, it just means that those lines, very strong lines, have gone away. So now this layer is now assisted. None of the others say that, so that means this is the one that's going to be easier to draw on. And I'll go into this time I'll go to my pencil, and I'll start flushing this out a little bit. I'm going to go right over the tree and right over the people, and then we'll fix that later. But let's say that this is the overhang. I'm going to change Draven's design a little bit and make this an overhang, and we'll make it a very precise edge, sort of a Sir Norman Foster design. And maybe there'll be a very delicate column at the corners and a slight change in material at the bottom. And remember that Drawing Assist allows you to keep doing verticals and horizontals, but will also allow you to do these perspectival lines. And here we go with the first of those, and you can see how flat those became because we're more oriented towards this side of the walkway, and it's starting to look like a Barcelona pavilion by Mies van der Rohe. Now I'll give a little depth back in there of this walkway, and I'm just eyeballing that for the moment, but I'm going to think of that as the line of the building behind. And I'll draw a guideline up here, and the first joint in that ceiling will be there, and then this joint is going to be much further over because of this is more flattened, perspectively flattened, and this will join that. So some of these may be a little off, but you'll definitely get you'll definitely get the idea from this. Now we were going to give this some thickness. This was going to be our homage to the Barcelona pavilion, and so I guess it's really more like a Norman Foster thing these days, where he does these incredibly thin shells on these exterior plazas. And this will be the doorway, and then the building's going to continue beyond that off to the side. And I'll throw in some, I'll make this a very modern opening with barely any profile at all. And we'll come over here, and maybe one side is a beautiful wood door and the other side is glass, and there's a modern handle on it. And let's see, I'll give this roof just a tiny bit of thickness and bring it up here. And then let's say on another layer you could begin to add your grid for your floors and divide it into maybe we'll divide it into large chunks of beautiful, I forget what's the name of that marble that you can use outside, Pascal?
Granite?
Yeah,
Stone?
I like that. Yeah, let's do that. And I need to activate this layer now. Also, I need to make it Drawing Assist because I want to draw this paving relatively quickly. And I'll reduce the size of the pencil a little bit. And I'm just going to go right over everything, I'm going to go over I'll make it sort of random ashlar. Oops. Yeah, there you go. It's going, sometimes it surprises you when you find out where the vanishing point was as you draw these things. And travertine was the one I'm thinking of, but that's probably dangerous, right?
Travertine, yeah. But you need it to be in Florida, because when it's too cold, it's not usable.
It's dangerous, right? You could slip on it, or if you
no, because it's going to freeze and to destroy the storm.
It cracks.
When you have -10, you cannot use travertine. It's good for the south of Italy.
I see. Okay.
For example.
Very
or
good.
In Florida,
yeah.
Or something like that.
Excellent. All right, and now I'm in drawing, because I'm in drawing mode. I can put in these joints and really have fun with them, and start to really give it this scale.
It's quite fast. Yeah.
Yeah. And oops. Yeah. Nope. Okay. I don't know why that happens. So let's see. Yeah, and I apologize. I'm getting into this design way too much, but hopefully you guys can see how infectious it can become. So I'll stop there, and then let's do on another layer. Let's refine that circular drawing we were doing, that circular bench, and I will use the Narinder pencil. I'll bump it up just a little bit, and this time, for speed's sake, I'm gonna do the whole bench. Again, I can be terrible at this at first, but then just hold that pencil down, and I can even make it larger. And you don't have to worry about it. If you let it go too fast, remember, because it's on its own layer, I can shrink it down again and adjust it. So I'll do that, and this time I'll duplicate it, and I'll bring it down, and I'll go into that freeform mode and make it more consistent with a perspective disappearing. And I'll go back to this top one and duplicate it again. And this time I'll make the interior part of the bench, the part encircling the tree. And that works. Okay, so that's the sort of last part of the formal line drawing. I'll very often add a layer and then just do that outline we talked about, which really helps me psychologically. Oops, I need to activate drawing assist there, and it's probably too big. But I just like to throw a line around things, and this is what I mean by delimiting the the amount of your work, so you can sort of see everything ahead now, and maybe even make that a little bit lower, so we bring the emphasis back down on this. Okay, and actually I'm going to go up. I won't be finicky this time. Let's make it seem very complete. So what's left is to create this quick illusion of this drawing. I'll bring the people and the tree back up just so we can see them in context. So I'll tap this tree, and I'll also do a little right to left swipe on the people. So I've got, I beg your pardon, it's a left to right swipe. And so now both of those layers are selected, and I can now tap on them until they break free and bring them up above and release them. And this is sort of the fun cleanup phase of the rendering, because I'm starting to see it, I'm starting to visualize, and I can now turn off some of these messy layers that got us started, and begin to see my final goal here. And then all that's left at this point is to start to add tone to this stuff. Okay, tone to the drawing. And let's say we go back down here. This is our layer of trace, and I'll stay under the layer of trace so it can kind of give us dreamy effect. And I'll begin to add my colors down here, And so I'll add a layer here. And let's go to a beautiful sky blue, Memphis sky blue. And I'll go into the selection tool. This is going to be that select and fill thing that we learned with each other. And I'll go to freehand, and I will track my way around this perimeter. You know, there's going to be a building back there. I guess I should have acknowledged that. So let's say that the building comes across, straight across. It's like a 1960s building or something. And this is going to be the sky part. So I'll release that. And it's a little too dreamy, so I'll turn off that tracing layer so we can see that a little bit better. And then basically what you'll go through is, and I hate to take all your guys' time doing this, but you'll go through these. I'll try and put in just the biggest possible layers. You'll go through and one at a time create as much of a color composition as you can. So now I'm going to go down and do the floor, and that's going to come across, or I should call it the terrace, the paving, and we'll have it return a little bit. And here comes that color, and that's a little cold. I'll go into the adjustments menu and make that, I'll start by finding a better base color, and then maybe desaturating it a little bit and making it a little brighter, a little more saturated. And I'll undo the selection button. And let's say that if it is a classic building from the 60s, that maybe it's as much as I hate to make it, maybe it's a red brick, a dull red brick building. And I'll pick one, and then we can always adjust it later. So this will be the next layer, the building itself. And this is going to be easy because I can use the rectangular selection tool and just do one quick rectangle. And I'll pull it across. And let's make it simple, make the whole building that way. Now I'm working from the background forward, so we don't have to, and look how that's sort of like boom, suddenly things are coming alive. Now this foreground element is going to be fun because it's going to transform that and pop it out. So let's make that a lighter color, this whole overhanging surrounding object, and that will be on top of the red. So I'll go there and I'll find a nice Mies van der Rohe underside reflection color, and I'll come back to that selection tool, and this time freehand, and I'll work my way around this. Something I did, let's see what I did. There we go. So I just used 2 and 3 fingers. I tried not to panic, took a deep breath, and I used 2 fingers to see if I had to go backwards, or 3 fingers to see if I had to go forward to recover that red, and I had to go forward. And I'll add that layer again, and I don't know why that happened, by the way, so there are still mysteries in this world. And once I'm in the selection tool, I'll go to freehand, and I'll try and keep my palm of my hand away further this time, and I will work my way around this and down to the bottom and across to the bottom of the canopy and up. And now let's drag and drop that in, and I'll undo that. So now that doesn't look very real because it's just a color for now, which still needs some work. But let's use that same color for the seating donut, and I will keep it on that same layer, and let's go back in and use the selection tool. Now I could actually use the ellipse if I wanted to. I'm not very good at that, but I'll try it. And what you want to do when you use the elliptical selection tool is you want to go to the imaginary corner of a rectangle that encloses this ellipse. And so I'm going to guess it's about there, and I'm going to pull across, and close enough for government work, and I'll stop there. And I'm going to add another ellipse at the top to define the top of the bench. And let's fill that in now. And what I would do normally here is just quickly finish that out myself with a flat marker. So I'll add the borders of this, and then I'll come in and fill in this part that escaped me. Okay, and I'm going to clean up a few lines here, starting with the lines that cross over each other. And let's see, I think that's this line here is the one that needs some cleaning up. So I'll go to the eraser and just take the part out that gets crossed over by the other leading edge of the bench. Okay, and then these patterns in the floor, this texture in the floor, which is here, that needs to be crossed out. So I'll go in here and now I'm going to deselect assist so that I can use the freehand method and scrub out these lines. And there goes that. All right, and then let's say we want to make, there's a couple of things I want to do. I want to add some glass color to this door. So I will go in above the brick layer and hit the plus sign, and I'll choose my glass color ahead of time. Let's make it the same as the sky to keep things simple. And I'll go to the rectangular selection tool and go back to rectangle and stretch it across this opening. This is going to be cruder than I would normally do this because I'd want to put in the mullion details and such, but I wanted to get at least that far. And then let's do one last thing here, which I'm always talking about, which is these wonderful shadows. And we'll do a single big shadow that brings this to life. And I'll go to the very top of the page to do that. Let's see, I'm going to go below these people and above the line drawing, and I'll add a layer. And now what I like to do is in the shadow layer I like to proactively add the make it in multiply blend mode. Okay, so that means that everything under this shadow layer I create, you will see it will still come through and give us that wonderful illusion of shade and shadow. So I'm going to go in, my favorite shadow color, at least for starters, is sort of a blue-violet. The violet has a nice contrast with the warmth of the sun and is nice in creating that illusion. So, but we can adjust it later. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this kind of dirty blue-violet. Or if you're in a disc, if you want to do it disc-wise, just kind of move your hue lever, your hue dot this way, and then move your darkness this way, and maybe make it a little bluer. So that's very, very experimental and completely up to you guys, but that looks good to me. And so to put that shadow in quickly, I could show you how I diagram. I've done a lot of shadows in my life, and so I've got a very distinctive idea, and we can go through that in greater detail, but let me just show you how I would do it without necessarily explaining it. So I'll go into freehand, and I'm going to have the sun coming from the left and coming all the way across this plaza. So what that's going to do is this overhang is going to have a shadow, a deep shadow that hits this wall, and or maybe it doesn't, and this plane of the overhanging roof is going to come sweeping down and come into this plaza a little bit, and it's going to come down here and go under the overhang a little bit. Oops, I touched that. So you'll see what I mean in a second. So I'll start the shadow here and over to here. And this is going to be the shade part, but this will be the shadow part. And that shadow is going to follow the perspective, because the edge of the shadow will also disappear or converge to the vanishing point. I'll come down here, and I'm just going to estimate how far that shadow would come down this wall. So I'm going to estimate it to be about there, and then take it back towards the vanishing point here, and across the plaza here, and into this walkway as much as it came into this walkway. And so I'll tap there, and now I'll follow this shadow back this way. And for simplicity's sake, let's say it goes to here. Now it's going to come up to the overhang, because that overhang, that far edge of that overhang, this will be sunlight and this will be shadow. And I'm going to come across the underside of that overhang, and all of this will be in shade again. And even though I'm explaining it at great detail, you can imagine this would go very quickly. I'm going to even do a little vanity thing here and have this tiny little shadow where these two planes meet each other. So that's going to go up at an angle there. And then over to here and over to here. So there is the extent of my shadow, and now there's the fun part. When I just drop this color in, watch what happens, and how it sort of instantly comes alive. And it's probably too purple and cartoonish, so I can go in here and either desaturate it or give it a little bluish hue if I want to. But you can see that I kind of like to keep the shadows warm still. And I will now tap out of that. But again, the good news, you can adjust that for the rest of your life. It really doesn't matter. And what are we left with? We're left with very light people, which can now go darker. So I'll select the people, and I will darken them. But you know, I like to keep their clothes light if possible, so I'll only go so far with that. And then the tree, I think, could benefit from being a little darker, so I'll tap that layer and I'll do that right to left, take off and land, and duplicate it, and you can see how that multiplies things. Okay. And so, and then this, you know, definitely be time to adjust colors now and to add plants, because this is very dead here. So you would want to come into this layer, and that you recall we combined it with the overhang, but we can still accomplish the same thing by selecting this layer. And I'll tap on the selection tool, and that limits whatever new things I do to just this area. And I think the first thing I'll do is I'll adjust that color, because I don't like that color, and that's going to adjust the other thing at the same time, but that's all right. So I'll desaturate it and make it maybe a little, yeah, just like that, a little bit more concrete, like concrete. And then with that color selected, I'll add a layer on top, and I'll just go with a gray, and I'm going to just sort of model this. I'm going to give it a little bit of shadow on that side. So I'm not sure what color is going to work here, but I'll start there, and I'll use the airbrush because I like a nice soft shadow, and give it the right size, and I'll just start to brush that in like that. And I'll even come over here, because this part will be in shade as well, or yeah, not shadow but shade. I'll give that a little bit of that, and it's not a great color, but again, this is the old watercolor trick. I can come up here and adjust the hue and saturation, make it more at home with that color, whatever it is. And let's see, and then the last thing, let's do that fun thing we did with the plants last week. And we never quite got we never finished, but let's add something for the planting in the middle. And what I'll do is I'll start with a green color. And greens are my toughest colors. I can never quite, I get them too bright or too rich, but I'm going to use these, I like these gray greens, at least for a start. So I'll tap the gray green. And what I'll do first is make sure that I've got the whole inside filled. It'll be a raised planting bed. And so I'll go back to that ellipse. I'll take a chance and go back to that ellipse selection. And remember, I'm completing an imaginary rectangle that encloses this entire upper ellipse. And now I'll pull it across, and I'll throw this color in. And let's see, that's too lifeless, so I'm going to go and make it a little more saturated. And even change the hue a little bit. There we go, that's a little better. And let's see, we also want to make sure it's over the, in this case we want to make sure it's over the tree, and then we'll erase the tree shape from it. Okay, so there it is, and I'm going to go with the eraser now, which I believe should be in the flat marker mode. There it is. And I will just invent how much of that tree pokes through. There's that. And the last thing we'll do is add a layer on top of that and do some of those plants that we talked about, the little tiny leaves. Again, I really have trouble picking my greens, but I'll put in anything and then we can adjust it. And for this, I'm going to go into another one of these crazy brushes I was telling you about last week. We used, I think it was the Aurora, and you can see that's a little strange, but this is really where this practice idea comes in. If you just play with these brushes, you will be amazed at what they can do. This one is obviously like a double two-color brush. That's interesting. And I really did not know what this brush was going to do when I went to it just now. But it seems like it's creating a convincing Bob Ross type color. And I guess what you could do at that point is, because we have that green layer underneath, we can make that more of a shadow layer. I'll go to the saturation and brightness and I'll tone that down, and look how nicely that pops up the new layer. And then the new layer is a little too bright, and I'll use the adjustments menu and hue, saturation, and brightness and desaturate that a little. And there you go. And if you see a lot of my work, you'll see that normally what I do, so this took us, let's say this took us an hour and a half, and if a client of mine had wanted this drawing, I'd probably want to make it look like I worked a little harder on this. And so very often what I'll do is I'll go back to the pencil and choose a black and go back to the Narinder and kind of add a little bit of drawing to these things to kind of pull them all together a little bit more. And it just looks like it's making the fact that it's a stencil, or let's say that you found this on the internet, it was a perfect tree. Just by giving it a little bit of pencil, you can pull it back into that world of hand drawing, and you don't have to get too far. And the same goes for the people. If you pull that, if you just give them a little bit of the drawing, it's fun. It takes you back to being a kid again, where you're tracing. And oh, I see, I left out something very important. You guys have been really patient. I appreciate it. But you can imagine you just sort of like work your way around, and suddenly it's just like a little bit more of a hand drawing kind of thing. Now there's a lot of lines behind her, and that's happening with all the people, which is kind of annoying. So let's see, do I show you this trick? I know I'm really testing your patience, but if I multiply this, remember these came in as stencils, and so they're always going to be a little bit transparent, but there's a trick I can do to make them more solid by going to that layer and duplicating it, and then the layer underneath I'm going to completely turn white, let's say. So I've got the layer underneath, and I'm going to go to the adjustments menu, and actually I can first make it black, might be more effective. Now that makes the people kind of ugly and a little bit too dark and ominous for the drawing, but you'll see where I'm going in a second. I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to duplicate that layer about 5 times. And now I'm going to merge each of those duplicated layers down one at a time. And what this is going to do is I'm going to end up with a white background to these characters. That's going to make the original detail, the original grayscale detail come out. And I do that by now returning to the adjustments menu. And now I brighten it all the way. And so you can do it even more than I've done it, but you see the effect is basically to cover up all those lines that were originally behind those people. And if you take that just a little further, you can imagine the effect that has. And I keep adding to your misery, but I'm going to do one more fun thing, which I really love to do. And I'm going to add to this layer, and we're going to go back and we're going to do that same shadow thing again, where we ahead of time we tap on the blending mode and go into multiply blend mode, and then we're going to go into that gray violet that we picked and into the selection tool freehand, and I'm just going to add shadows under these people, which is really going to make it really come alive. And to do that, I just kind of make up what shapes people would actually project on the ground, and they always surprise you because they're very foreshortened, but there's a way that you can just start your hand moving that kind of simulates what a shadow might look like in a photograph. And that involves like making little streaks where people's legs would be, and their pocketbooks might come down. And you'll see that in a second when I fill this in. Bring this over and release it, and it just has a little bit of an extra layer of realism, and you'll get better at inventing these shadows. But I'll put the same thing under this guy. This time I won't go over his clothes. Actually, I can go over his clothes because we have that layer of white. So this guy will come up, and then his shadow will follow this curve along and then come back over there and under here, and we'll pull that down, and now he's suddenly there. And the same with this woman. This is all shades, so that won't really get a shadow, but the bench itself will add a shadow, and her foot will stick a little bit into that. Maybe her head will come over here, and I'll come back this way, and there's that. And then if you really want to get fancy, you can actually add the shadow cast by that tree. So I'm going to merge that tree together, and now I'm going to make another copy of that tree, and with this copy of the tree I'm going to pull it down, and it's hard to see, but that lower copy of the tree I've made is now going to be selected in the Move and Transform menu, and I'm going to distort it, and I'm going to bring it way down here like this, and have it kind of fill up. It's not going to be super accurate, but it's going to fill up the courtyard with this realistic looking configuration of leaves. So I'm obviously, it's not really, the tree isn't really over here throwing the shadow, but I can get that effect suggested, and I'll go back in to the airbrush eraser. I'm in the eraser library. I'll make sure airbrush is picked, and I'll just take out the part of that shadow that wouldn't be there and leave the part that would be, and I can even have some leaves projected. So you can see how quick that was, and how kind of realistic it was. I can take it more out of her clothes there, and it's just a wonderful way. And now if I actually select that shadow, or maybe I need to duplicate it again, because you're very often trying to make things more opaque so that you can manipulate them. So I'll go ahead and merge that down, and then I will select that. So this is a great trick. I'll select this, and I will remember that shadow color is still picked. So now I'll go in, instead of dragging and dropping that in, I'll go in and hit the fill layer command, and look what happened. The whole shadow becomes that color, but it's still opaque. So I'm going to switch it now to multiply blend mode, and watch what happens when I do that. We'll switch it to multiply blend mode, and suddenly the whole plaza comes alive, and you see all the details underneath. Okay. I went on way too long, but I hope you all got something out of that. I'm going to switch back to my mug and come back, and there you are. Some of you may have had to leave, but no, actually you're all three there. I can't believe it. What nice, generous people you are. So
it's quite well.
I hope that was helpful, and
yes, definitely.
okay, we'll have the recording of that, and I'll let you all back to your Saturdays. And then, Draven, this all started with you, so if I left out something that would be important in terms of architectural perspective, just drop me a line, and I'll address your question. And also, Pascal, you may not have heard this earlier, but the next lesson is about drawing to scale, the Wednesday session, but I don't think that's going to take more than an hour. So I was thinking we could get back on some of this perspective stuff again, and maybe pick up where we left off if we needed to. Okay, any last minute questions, folks? All right, we are good.
That's great. Thank you.
All right, I'm so glad you all liked it, and we'll see you Wednesday. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Y'all then?
Have a nice weekend, everyone.
Hi.
Thank you very much. You too.
James,
Bye, Pascal.
see you.
Bye bye all.